What's
Ooh.
up, everybody? Finally live. We're a few minutes late. We apologize for that. We were chatting behind the scenes. As you all know, my name's Jennifer. I am a community manager here for the Channel Federator Network. And with me today is a really special treat is Josh Hat Lieberman, right? You prefer to go by Hat, correct?
Yeah, sure. That's good.
He is the creator, writer for the Adventures in Gay comic, as well as a really successful YouTube channel. But not only that, he is, or at least he used to be, till recently, a full-time animator on a bunch of shows and movies that you all know and love, right?
Yeah, story artist.
Yeah. So I have enabled in this Google Hangout or live stream the questions app, and you can see right on the side there, you can go ahead and ask us any questions, and we will get to them, keeping in mind that the live stream is about 3 minutes behind. So you'll ask us the question, and we probably won't see it for another like 3 minutes or so. So just keep that in mind if you have a burning question. It might take us a little bit to get to you. And also, it's not a chat window. If you want to say hello, that's cool. There's a chat window on the event page, but the questions app is mostly just for questions. What do you know? So I'm just going to go ahead and get started and ask Josh or Hat. What do you want me to call you, Josh or Hat?
Yeah, let's go by hat. Let's do
Hat?
hat.
You
Yeah.
got it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Hat, like, how did you get started? Like, what drove you towards the art and cartoon and animation field?
I mean, that's pretty much all I ever wanted to do growing up. Is really all I ever did, actually. So I really didn't have any choice. I figured I'd have to find a way to make a living off of it, or else I'd be screwed. So yeah, that's all I did when I was growing up. I was in all my notebooks from high school and middle school. They all had more drawings than they ever did have notes and homework in it. So I just kind of knew that's what I wanted to do from as early on as I can remember.
When you were growing up, was there any like particular shows or comic books or anything that really like got you into it?
Yeah, when I was really younger, like Ren and Stimpy was a huge influence, and then I think when SpongeBob came out, I was about, I think I was like 12 or 13, and I just feel like it was like the perfect time for me to see that. And I think that's when I'd always known I'd liked cartoons, and it was always what I wanted to do. But I think when I saw that, I think things like clicked for the first time when it was just like, yes, this is what I'm going to do. And yeah, that's probably been one of the biggest influences on me.
Is there anything that influences you heavily now?
Um, Lots of things now. I think I've actually always found that I draw more inspiration from other mediums that aren't necessarily cartoons or even visual.
Like books or newspapers or
I draw a lot of inspiration from musicians, and not necessarily even just their music, but just their approach to their craft and how they view the world and how they view their life. And like Jason Mraz has been a huge influence on me my whole life. I mean, he was one of the reasons I dropped out of school and moved to California and basically started working for studios. But just this whole concept of your artwork not being your own, but being a reflection of everyone else's influence on you and the world's influence on you. It was so refreshing to hear like an artist, somebody who has such great success in his own right and in his own field, talk about his artwork as not being his own, where art can be a very self-centered thing, industry,
Mhm.
business, and to see people like that who treat it as a means to connect with other people, I really really appreciate that, and that really helped shape how I viewed being an artist and what I wanted to do with everything.
Was there anyone else that you knew, like growing up, that really pushed you? Because honestly, like I went to school for graphic design, so I wanted to be an artist too, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without my mom telling me, like, no, you can do it, because I was always like, I'm going to be a starving artist, and I'm not going to get any money, and I'm just going to be poor my whole life. And my mom's like, no, you can totally do it. I support you. You're going to be fine. You're great. I don't do graphic design anymore, but still, like I couldn't have done it without my mom. Was there anyone in your life that really like helped you through the whole like starving artist thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, my parents. I mean, absolutely. My mom and my dad have both been incredibly supportive. Um, they always helped facilitate my interests, and if I wanted to do arts and crafts or make projects, they would always run out and get me all the supplies and made sure I have everything. So I don't know that it was necessarily pushing me in that direction, just as more as it was, allowing me to do that and giving me the opportunities to do that, and paying for classes and our instructors and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they've always been behind it, and I think I've been pretty self-motivated about it. And the way I always view it, and I still view it to this day, is that writing and drawing is just what I do, even when I'm not getting paid for it. Like even when I'm at home and I'm just sitting around, that's just what I do. I like to draw. I like to write. I like to come up with stories. And if I was working at Starbucks right now and people were ordering drinks, I'd be writing their name and I'd be drawing a little picture of them on their cup and I would give it to them just because that's just what I do. Like that's just it. So.
It's less of a job if you love and enjoy what you're doing, and you can do it for much longer.
Yeah, that's the great thing about art is that I mean I'm a big fan of sports also. I really like basketball, and you see these guys who have like some of them have like 5 or 6 year careers where they have to do like so much in such a short amount of time. But I mean you're an artist. I mean you can draw until you're 80, 90. I mean
you just got to protect your hands. That's all. Are you a lefty or a righty?
Yeah, but you could. I think a lot of it, you need a lot of life experience to really understand being an artist, and I think that's one thing we kind of overlook is that we focus so hard on the tangible aspects of it, like producing and creating. And I think sometimes we forget that we need to step back and actually you have to live and you have to have something to say before you can actually say it. So, and I think you could spend 50 years living your life and then become an artist and be very successful at it.
We had another creator on the network a few weeks ago that also had a webcomic, and his major thing was like he doesn't really go on social media sites, and he doesn't like look at BuzzFeed or anything like that. Like he says he reads newspapers and he reads books, and he like is so heavily in the print media, and that's how he gets like his inspiration and how he keeps going because of all the because I don't know, it's just saying like he was connected with the world in a different way, and it helped them pull like jokes and stuff into his comics where people wouldn't even think of them because people are so disconnected with things outside of Facebook and Tumblr and Twitter. So that's really interesting. So when you decided, like, well, was it like a specific decision, or you always knew you were going to be a comic or animation?
No, not comics, but yeah, definitely animation. I mean, that's just where my heart is. It's always what I've loved. It's always what's resonated with me the most, and it's always what I wanted to do was just be in animation. Yeah.
Did you get started with like little flip books, or how did you get started?
Every book that I ever bought for school when I was like middle school or high school, there was flip books in the bottom corner, in every corner actually, top corner, bottom corner, and then you go backwards and put one on the back side of it. And, actually, I remember once I was really lucky. I had a couple really good teachers, one English teacher, one creative writing teacher, who both really helped, push me towards, like doing. They noticed that I really liked writing and drawing and all that stuff. And we had to do I think we were reading in class or something, and I totally wasn't paying attention. But I went up to the teacher after. I was like, "Hey, check out this flip book I made in the bottom of the book we were supposed to be reading." And he was like, totally loved it. He was like, he thought it was the coolest thing ever. So that's pretty awesome.
Thanks for teachers like that.
Yep.
Those are awesome. So what was, besides, Flipbook, did you like switch to Adobe Flash, or what was the next
Lots
step?
of Flash. Yeah.
You still use Flash?
Flash. It was super, and I think still to this day, and that's the thing that's great about animation now, is it's so much more accessible than it was, even 15, 20 years ago. Now you can basically download a program and start animating right away. So yeah, I got Flash. And I did a whole bunch of little things, and then I actually ended up doing a senior project at my high school. The last, I guess, like 2 months or something, you do your senior project, which some like real world, experience and whatnot. And I basically just made a whole short. I think it was about 7 minutes, and it was about my high school, and yeah, just stuff like that. I just always like being creative and doing little short films and little animations and music and everything. So just always doing stuff.
So then you went to college for animation too, right?
I went to school for 2 years and I didn't really like it, so I just left and I started doing internships.
Well, was that scary? Like what made you decide like school isn't for me, I'm gonna just go off and do my own thing?
I didn't want to go to school in the first place, actually. I
Mm.
was pretty adamant about not. And actually, looking back, I think it was definitely the right decision to go for the 2 years that I was there, because there was a lot I needed to learn. It was frustrating for me because I'd known so specifically for such a long time that I was going to do animation. I knew I wanted to make cartoons, and when you go to art school, your first year in particular is all foundations pretty much. And I just found that very frustrating, and that I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And in hindsight, yeah, a lot of that stuff helped, and I did need to understand design better, and just simple things, which because I actually didn't. I didn't really do that much art when I was growing up, like art classes. It was just really doodles and cartoons and stupid little comic strips and stuff. So it was definitely essential. But I just knew so strongly what I wanted to do that I just felt like I was wasting time, honestly. So I just wanted to get into studio as quickly as I could. And I was just applying anywhere and everywhere that would listen to me.
So what was your first studio job, and how did you get
Uh,
it?
I got an internship at Cartoon Network, so that was the first thing. That was the first thing I did. So I interned on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
I
Um,
love that show.
yeah, it was. I never thought I would get on that show either, because it was that was one of my favorite shows, and I remember talking to them, and they were like, "Oh yeah, your resume is cool. Is there any projects you like, or any shows that you like that we have ongoing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, of course, Foster's. It's great." But I never thought I would get on it, and I just happened to get on it. So that was a huge jumping point for me. I got to meet a lot of really talented people, and got to see how a studio runs, and especially on a production that I liked, which made it even better. And there's still that was 6.5 years ago now, almost 7 years ago, and there's still people from that production that I talk to and know. So that
That's
was
awesome. What did you do for Foster's? You said you interned first,
yeah,
or?
it's a production internship. So I wasn't actually a working artist at that point. So essentially being a PA. But the awesome thing about animation studios is that when you show a willingness or you show an eagerness, there's people that are there to facilitate opportunities for you. So I was very vocal about letting people know what I wanted to do, and showing people my sketchbooks and portfolios and projects that I've been working on, and they a lot of the guys would take time out of their day to look at my stuff, and then also give me kind of like mock assignments, or be like, hey, here's some old script pages, why don't you board some and we can look at it, or hey, here's what a character designer, here's the layout a character designer gets, why don't you go through and do a whole bunch of designs and we'll talk about it, and that kind of stuff. So there were some guys like Ben Bellistreri was really awesome. I don't know who's watching, but if you don't know his stuff, you should look him up. He's amazing. Oh, I have his book here actually.
Oh, awesome.
He made this massive comic book. It's enormous.
Whoa! What's the inches on that thing? It's huge.
He's one of the most talented people in the world. Anyways, he's amazing, and he was awesome, and he took a lot of time to talk to me and look at stuff, and
Like mentor you a little bit.
yeah. And even like the showrunners, like Craig McCracken was great. I remember he looked at my portfolio for me, and these guys are so busy, but that's the best thing about animation is everyone's so awesome, and everyone's so chill, and nobody has an ego really, and everyone just wants to have fun and work with other people that are passionate and cool. So
They're in it for the love of animation, because God knows you need to love it in order to do it. Because you take time and time, it's so much time consuming, that if you don't love it, you're not going to last.
Yeah, these crews kind of become your family over the course of the production. Whether on a film, it's you're about in story you're about a year and a half. And TV shows are a little bit different because you're kind of with the entire production in a studio. All the background and layouts and directors are all kind of together. In a feature studio, it's more just the story teams, but you're looking at like a year or a year and a half, maybe 2 years on a certain production, and these people just kind of become your family, because you see them every day, and you hang out every day, and you're working late with them, and you're all complaining about the same things, and then you're all cheering about the same things. So
then what happened when the production was over and you moved on from Foster's? Where did you go next? And what was it like leaving that production for the first time?
Oh yeah, of course that was hard. I mean, as an intern, it's like you finally where you want to be, and then it's only about 2.5, 3 months, and then you gotta figure out something else. But I was lucky enough to meet some other people who had some ties at Dreamworks, and I talked to some people there, and I basically got an internship again after that, a story internship at Dreamworks on How to Train Your Dragon. Um,
Mhm.
and again, I've been super lucky. I've been super fortunate. Just I guess good timing and just like the projects I've landed on. But then it's funny. I'd always pictured myself working in TV. I never really thought about feature that much. I loved SpongeBob. I loved Ren and Stimpy. I loved all that stuff, and that's what I wanted to do. Um, and then I just happened to get into story and feature, and I met some really awesome people who, again, in the same way that it happened in the TV studio, they just took me under their wings and, you know, being vocal about what I wanted to do and being eager about it and, wanting to work and doing all that stuff. There's people there who are willing to help you with that and give you that. So there was a guy, Dave Pimentel, who was, at the time, he was head of story on How to Train Your Dragon. There was some shifting right after I in the crew right after I got off. But he's been probably one of the biggest influences on my career. He's an amazing man, and he's one of the most talented guys. He's at Disney now, and if you don't know his stuff, you should look him up. Just gesture drawing and figure drawing. He's the guy right now. So yeah, kind of the same. Just kind of went through the same path, just in feature, and it just. Oh, actually, we ended up going back to Cartoon Network to do the pilot really quickly, but it just kind of wound up that the opportunities just kind of happened in feature, and I just kind of liked it a lot. So I never really saw myself being in feature, but it just kind of worked out that way.
So what has been like some of your favorite projects you've worked on, and then reversely, what if some of the projects that you really was difficult or you just didn't like working on?
Yeah. So let's start with the bad one. Well, I should say bad.
We
So
don't know who's listening, by the way.
yeah. Well, it's not. It's more of like circumstances. It's like where you are and where the production is and those kind of things. That there's never really like a bad production. It's just kind of timing wise. Where you are and what the production needs are. So when I first got hired at DreamWorks, they hired me. After the internship, I got hired on full time as a story artist up north at the northern branch they have at PDI in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. And the project I went on to was Madagascar 3, and that was the first time I was really boarding for a feature. And that show in particular is very, very demanding on the story artist. There's lots of characters, there's lots of locations, there's lots of action. The contrast in the characters is very high. You have like some characters like Mort and Julian and the lemurs and the penguins that are really, really small, and then you have like the giraffe and things that are massive. That it makes things very, very difficult to stage and orchestrate. Where your cameras are, and you have so many you have to keep track of so many characters and sequences that it was just really, really rough for me, because it was not only the first time I was doing story, but I was doing story on a show that was just crazy to board on, just flat
All
out.
over the place.
But the team was really, really good, and I don't think I would have survived without like the strength and the support of all the other story guys. And I mean, those guys are my brothers now, and we talk. I still talk to most of them, and talk to one of them in particular all the time. It's one of those things that you hear from a lot of people in animation, where you just have to go through a production like that where you think you're going to give up, or you think all hope is lost, or you can't do it. And that's when you know if you can do it or not, basically. And you just work your way through it, and before you know it, you're on to the next one. And it's one of those things I look back and, I learned so much on that production. And it was very challenging, and there were parts of it that weren't necessarily fun. And a lot of times it doesn't have to do with the production. It has more to do with kind of where you are as an artist and what you need to be doing. And you can never get good enough fast enough. So it's just kind of those struggles of fighting through it. And you look back now and you see how far you've come. And that's the real reward from that, from a scenario like that, or from a production like that, is knowing that you came out better. And now I know there's, even if I got onto Madagascar 4, well, I mean, I was on Ice Age 5, which is pretty much the same thing. I was on Ice Age 5 for Blue Sky. That was the last thing I worked on there. And that was kind of a piece of cake now, because I was like, yeah, I've been here, I've done this, I know what I'm doing now.
That's nothing but experience under your belt, right? So what was your favorite production to work on?
Let's see. I have fun on most of them. I mean, even on Mad, we had fun. It was just a very challenging time. I had fun with the other story guys a lot. But probably when I went to Blue Sky, I worked on. I was there for just about 3 years, and I just left to do my own stuff full time. But I'd worked on. I did Punch Up for a couple. I did Punch Up for Epic and for Rio. But then I got onto a development project with one of the directors there, and actually a couple of the directors there, and we basically worked together for about 6 or 8 months of just doing kind of story development and exploration, and it was a lot of fun. And I can't talk about the project yet, unfortunately. But just that freedom that I had there, and working with those directors, I worked with Mike Thurmeyer and Galen Chu, who have been at Blue Sky forever and are responsible for a lot of the amazing stuff that's come out of there. They've really built an amazing team there. Um, but they were just super fun to work with, and it was I went to Blue Sky because it was a smaller studio and than DreamWorks, and there was a lot more opportunity to be a lot more invested and get a lot more involved. And that production, this development production in particular, it was really just me and the two directors for probably about 6 months, and we just hashed out a ton of stuff, and it was super super fun.
Aw. Well, I can't wait to hear what that project was.
Yeah.
Now, I'm intrigued because now it's a super secret. But then you mentioned that you've recently left Blue Sky to go and produce your own stuff and be creative on your own things. Like, what led you to that decision?
I was doing Adventures in Gay stuff full time. The comic had passed. I kind of wrapped up the initial comic, but I was doing a lot of videos, and the videos had animation in them, and I was doing a lot of so I was doing some music, and I was doing some other little drawings and memes and just a whole bunch of other stuff, and it just got to the point where it felt like I was working two jobs, and it just felt like the whole brand and just even just doing my own stuff, it felt like I had built up enough of an audience that it warranted me, taking a leap of faith and just diving in and just seeing, okay, well, if I dedicate myself full time to this, what can I produce? What other things can I do? So I've got I just wrapped up a little animated short I made that I'm going to post soon, and I'm working on some other videos and other comics and stuff now. So lots of stuff cooking, but yeah, it was just kind of taking a breather, and like I said earlier, as much as I'm living my life, I'm still actually doing work and stuff, but just being able to step back and just kind of reassess your life and think about things differently now, and look at what you've accomplished over the last few years, and just kind of see, okay, well, what next, and
Right.
try some new stuff and see what the
So that being said, you have a comic and you have videos and you're doing music. We'll go to one of our first questions from people in the network, from Paige, and she asks, like, what are some things that you do personally to stay organized in your creative projects and to manage your time? Because now you don't have really a full-time job, officially full-time anymore.
Yeah. That's definitely the hardest part about it all, and it's something I think every artist struggles with, is that if you give an artist infinite time, he's going to take infinite time. Like, that's just how we need, and it's human nature, I think, because we need deadlines. It's something I'm still working my way through, and I think it's different for everybody else. Right now, I juggle a lot of different projects, and I don't think it's the healthiest way, but it seems to be working for me. So I just kind of go with the flow, and I've always been a person who, I can't fake inspiration. I can't pretend I'm into something. If I'm not into a project, I'm just not into it, and I try not to force myself to do those things. There was a few projects I had lined up that I really wanted to do, and I started, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just not having fun right now, so I'm just gonna hold off on that. What are some good tips, though? I think with the videos in particular, I gave myself, I want to at least have one a week. So I do have like kind of this soft deadline that I gave myself, and there's people who expect that now. So I think that helps, motivate you. Is like, I got to make sure I get this up because I don't want to disappoint people. I want to make sure they get their daily dose of hat. I get a weekly dose of hat, I guess. And
So they hold you accountable to it. Do they freak out or say anything if you don't upload?
Not terribly. My audience is pretty chill. Everybody's pretty cool. If I miss a week, I get. It's more like concern. If I miss a week, people are like, "Hey, is everything okay? We noticed that you didn't have a video this week." I was like, "Oh yeah. No, I felt like sleeping more this week, so I didn't edit a video."
So do you have any like time management skills, especially as an animator, because you have to like sketch it out and storyboard it, and then like I'm not an animator, so I might be making this up, but then like the keyframes and then the in-betweens? Like, is there any particular schedule that you have for yourself when animating something?
You know, it's so subjective and it's so specific to people. Like I know people who will take a week for like one drawing and it's like an awesome drawing and it's really good. But then yeah, I know people who will do one drawing in like a minute or and produce like 1,000 and then just pick the one they like the most. So there's really no right or wrong. It's just kind of like figuring out your workflow and what works for you and what you're happiest with. Um, and I think knowing yourself as an artist, one of the things I always that kind of helps me is it's harder for me to get the ball rolling, but as soon as I do, I feel like the momentum shifts, and then I can sit and draw for like 3 or 4 hours. But it's like that. It's just like that first initial like sitting down on my computer and like opening up Photoshop and and avoiding avoiding going on Facebook and avoiding watching trailers and avoiding reading articles and stuff. Just open up Photoshop it. And actually what I do is now is like I'm kind of I don't know if you can tell from behind me, but I really like Pokemon, and I
Oh my
really
gosh, did you get Alpha and Omega yet?
yeah I have them both. I'm
Yeah,
still working my way through Alpha. I haven't finished. I haven't beat it yet. I've been doing a lot of drawing.
it's on my Christmas list.
What I do actually here, let me show everybody. I don't know if anybody's watching this, but I basically just have mounds and mounds of paper beside my desk or beside my bed, and I actually just draw Pokemon all the time. Like these are
That's
just
adorable. You should make like a separate Tumblr and throw all those up.
yeah. That's one of the projects that I wanted to do. That's
Well,
that's
there you
my
go.
Pokemon. So here's my starter. He's a little grass goat.
Oh, so cute.
But because I like drawing Pokemon so much, sometimes if I sit down at my desk and I'm supposed to be drawing a comic, I'll just start drawing Pokemon, and then I'm like, oh, this is fun. Drawing's fun, and then I just switch
Wasted the day.
to my comic file and then start drawing a comic. But yeah, I really think it comes back to just finding things that you're passionate about, because when I have a project that I like I don't even sleep. I'm just thinking about it all the time. I'm working on it all the time. I have notepads beside my bed that I'm just jotting down notes all the time. I wake up in the middle of the night, like, oh, that's a good idea. So I think it's like finding those things that you're really passionate about, because then the work kind of like makes itself.
Right. And like you kind of already answered one of the other questions I was going to ask you, which was what you actually do to like strap down and get to work and ignore a gazillion distractions. But it sounds like you kind of give in to distraction a little bit sometimes.
You have to. I mean, look, you're going to. So it's just be realistic with yourself about like making realistic timetables for yourself, and hold yourself accountable to it, but don't hurt yourself on it. Don't beat yourself up over it. I mean, there's a million projects I've started that I haven't finished, and maybe one day I'll finish some of them, all of them, none of them. I don't know, but yeah, just as long as it's something you care about, I think it'll find its way, whether it's now or in a year or 10 years from now.
So have you ever like come across a huge like writer's block or artist's block, and like how did you pass it or get around it?
I guess when you're working for a studio, you don't really have a choice. You have to draw every day, or most days. So there's times where you'll get sequences or you'll get assignments that you're not necessarily as interested in or feel like they're as valuable to the production as it could be, or it's not necessarily the right tone or the right script page or the right sequence, which happens all the time. But you just kind of have to, when you're working for a studio, you have to force yourself through that. And what I've noticed actually since being off is not being surrounded by other creative people, I think, hinders that process. So what I've been doing is trying to hang out with some of my other friends who also do freelance or who are also just other creative people, and just instantly when you're with them, just ideas just seem to kind of boil quickly. It's just you're bouncing things off and you're joking around, and all of a sudden, what would happen at the studio all the time is somebody will say something stupid, and somebody's like, oh, I'm going to make a comic because that was the stupidest thing you've ever said, and then all of a sudden you have this like funny little drawing and you can put it up online. But when you're kind of by yourself, you miss out on some of those opportunities of just this kind of spontaneous creativity. So I think yeah, finding like a network of other creative people, I think will help get you through any stifling creative periods you might have.
I mean, that leads to the, previous conversation we kind of had about like just having outside inspiration. Like inspiration doesn't just have to come from you. It can come from other things that then you turn into what, your art, right?
Yeah.
For so many people that I've talked to, like that's the keys. Like having friends, talking to people, bouncing off ideas, going to movies, reading books, like having world influences outside your own sphere of influence. So again,
Yep.
you're another example of that. So there's a few questions that came in that ask you about your like work. One in particular comes from Cody, who says, how hard was the transition when you left college to go be an intern in animation? And then from there, how hard was it to find a company willing to give you that internship? We touched on it briefly, but maybe let's just expand on that transition from college to internship.
Yeah. So it's funny. I'd mentioned SpongeBob before, and I'd always wanted to work on SpongeBob. Like that was my dream. I was like, I'm going to work on SpongeBob. That's what I'm going to do. And so I had applied actually the year before, even after my first year, I had applied to Nickelodeon, and I was essentially just applying to everywhere. And I think that was the key. I mean, had I only had my if I was being really, really picky and had only applied to Nickelodeon, I probably wouldn't have got the internship at Cartoon Network. So what I think is important is to just apply everywhere, because the thing about the animation industry is that it's so small that regardless of what studio you get into, there's going to be people at that studio who have worked at the studio that you want to work at or the studio that you were trying to get into, and they'll know people there. So it's really the most important thing is just to get in somewhere and basically just start busting your ass, and you'll make a name for yourself very, very quickly. The transition, you know, but so yeah, so I'd always wanted to get into SpongeBob, and I didn't, and then it ended up just happening out that I got into Cartoon Network, and it was like the best thing that ever happened because I met the right people I needed to meet, and I ended up getting, through because I did that internship, I got to make a pilot there shortly after, and it was just, everything works out the way it does for a reason, and the one of the things I think back when I look at myself is that I was very, very I'm a very passionate person. I'm very eager, and I get very excited about what I do, especially when I like it. And there were certain instances I think back to when I was an intern where I think I probably pushed a little bit too hard. Not that it burned any bridges or that it was detrimental to my career, but I think you just have to kind of catch yourself sometimes when you get a little too excited about things. So there were some instances I think, but I think, and that was the biggest transition, was just just coming, just realizing this is where you want to be. You're there. You can relax, but you can work hard and make that known to other people without kind of pushing too hard at that, because there's a lot of people at studios, especially when they're trying to get in, who try too hard, and it's a bit off-putting, because it comes off very aggressive. And the one thing about people in animation is we're very, very passive. We're very, very chill and calm. And the last thing they want is somebody, kind of like up in their face, pushing something or pushing their work or their attitude or something. So, I don't think I made any huge mistakes, but just I think back, and I think that was the biggest kind of transition, was just learning the ins and outs of a studio, and where you can chime in, and where maybe it's best at that time to just kind of like bite your tongue or just sit in the back, and it's not worth getting into an argument over or stepping on somebody's toes over something creative. So something like that. Was there more to the question?
It was
I'm sorry. I hope
what?
I'm sorry, Cody. I hope I answered your question. I think I just.
Yeah, it was the transition between college and intern, like what that was like between being a student and then being in the field, and then how hard it was to find a company that would give you an internship.
Oh, yeah. So again, I think a lot of I mean, and still, like, even after internships and stuff, I was still trying to get into Nickelodeon because I'd always wanted to work there so badly. And I still have one of the letters they sent me that was a no, and I framed it and I used it as motivation. But the whole thing with the whole, like, when studios say no, what they really mean, it doesn't mean no, it just means not right now. And what that means is that for whatever reason, the productions they have and the opportunities and the openings they have aren't necessarily best suited for you as a candidate. So it's never, and this is what I always tell students now, it's like when you hear no, it's not no. It doesn't mean no, you're not an animator. It doesn't mean no, you're not a story artist. No, you're not no, your show isn't good enough. It just means not now. And, there's things, I mean, you look at a show like Phineas and Ferb, I don't know if people know the history, like those guys had pitched it, whatever, like 10 or 15 years ago, and nobody wanted it. And then, sure enough, it just kind of finds its way back. And it's all about timing, really. And I think one of the most important things is preparing yourself and being ready for that. And I tell this to a lot of people, too, is, make sure you have your portfolios up to date, make sure you have your resumes up to date, make sure they're accessible, make sure they're ready to go, because things change so fast in animation that, in 1 minute, they could say, hey, we have an opening for story artist, and all of a sudden, if you're the first person to get it in there, things move so fast that sometimes they don't have a choice. They're just like, oh, this guy looks like he can do the job, let's just get him. And if you're ready, if you're ready to take advantage of those opportunities, you'll have a step up on everybody else. So that was that's how I actually I did a little bit of work on Flapjack. I did some story revisions and punch
I
ups.
love Flapjack.
It was fun. That was kind of the first real thing. That was right after the pilot. And what ended up happening was I was wrapping up the pilot that I was making, and I was in the studio, and I knew that they announced for they were looking for revisions, and I basically just went to the crew and I was like, hey, can I just do a test? I got the test, I did it right away, and I sent it back in, and it was probably within a week. So they they needed somebody to get on and do revisions, and they were like, oh, I guess this kid can draw. Let's just let him do revisions, and there it was. So yeah, you have to be kind of make sure you're ready for all that
Proactive. So that actually was a good segment to the next question, because you mentioned like being ready, have your resume, have your portfolio up to date. And Sarah asks, what are some key components that companies look for when they're looking at your portfolio or your resume?
Yeah.
Specifically as like an animator.
Yeah, I'd say resumes are less important. I actually think resumes tend to weigh more the farther down your career, because you're able to list a whole bunch of productions that you've worked on. But when studios are hiring like entry level or junior artists, like they know what they're getting. You're not going to have a resume like worked on all these incredible shows and movies just because that's just where they are in their career. So I would say it's less important. One of the things I've always, a friend of mine told me, he said on his resume he would make jokes, which I thought was really funny. And it's very much like an animation thing, is you want to work with people who are cool and funny. And if who wants to read a resume? So if somebody looks over a resume and they're like, oh, that was funny, well, if their resume's funny, I could only imagine how what their work is like. So he would make jokes in his resume. It would be, he had like, what did he say? It said like, like strengths, like plays well with others, like shares his toys or whatever, like just like that it really resonates with people in animation, because we like toys. And,
right?
And we play with others all the time.
Yeah, I can see all the toys behind you.
Yeah. Portfolio-wise, I'd say the more concise, the better. And that comes down to you as an artist, like what you think your strengths are. That's what you got to show. For feature in particular, here's the thing that people have to understand is like we're already so busy boarding these movies and having meetings and having brainstorms and pitching, that whenever they pull us into a meeting to look at portfolios, as much as it's like exciting for us because we do want to work with new people, it's really just like, can we just get this over with so we can get back to work? And when if they pull up somebody's portfolio that's like super long, if we're not into it within the first 30 seconds or a minute, the room just grows restless, and it's just like, next. So you really just got to make something very concise. And I think the biggest part is knowing what your strengths are and featuring that to the best that you can. in feature, there's pretty much like kind of three general schools. You got comedy guys, you got action guys, and you got drama guys. And it's not to say that they're all independent from each other. You should be expected to be able to handle anything that can be thrown at you when you're working feature. But, you can pretty much break it down into like groups of strengths that are either one or most of the time two of those things. Like action comedy guys or drama action kind of guys. So if you're a comedy guy, put comedy stuff and make sure it's your funniest stuff. If you want to do the drama, put in that kind of stuff, because studios are going to hire you to do a specific thing. Even in story, it's like they'll be like, oh, our movie's not funny enough. We need to go get a funny guy. So then they look at portfolios, and this comes back to the whole no thing. It's like when they're looking at portfolios, then if they look at your portfolio and it's not funny and they say no, well, it's not because your portfolio is not good or your artwork's not good. It's just because that's not what they're looking for at that time. So it's featuring what you can do, being prepared, and then just finding, being persistent and finding the right opportunities, because that's what it comes back down to a lot. Also, is that there's amazing artists who wouldn't be good on certain productions just because it's not their tone or it's not their tendency, and it has nothing to do with their abilities. It's more their sensibilities. So I think if what we see a lot is guys who, comedy's kind of the thing now that everybody wants, obviously, especially for animated features. If you're not funny or you don't think it's a strength, don't put stuff in that's kind of like half comedy. Because it won't go over well in the room. But action, drama, if that's what you want to do that, because you'll find the right opportunities. The studios that need it will find it, and they'll be like, yes, this is the guy we've been looking for, for that sequence we needed done, that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. At this time, I want to invite, we have a few minutes left and we can answer a few more questions, so if you guys have any more questions, you can go ahead and put them in the sidebar there, and I will tell them to Hat or ask Hat. There is one lingering question that's been on there for the entire time. I guess someone saw your Olive action figure, and they asked if you like Popeye the Sailor.
Did they ask if I like Popeye?
Yes.
Of course, yeah. Popeye's amazing. Fleischer cartoons. I think Fleischer is one of the most underrated, figures in animation history. I mean, not really many people know about him and what he did, but he was just, I mean, the cartoons are amazing, but he was just an amazing man. He was very inventive, and a lot of the techniques that we use, I mean, even multiplane, they did it at Fleischer first. I think Disney perfected it, but, Fleischer was toying around with all this camera stuff way before Disney was, and they were doing lots and lots of stuff before anybody else was, so I'm a huge Fleischer fan, a huge Popeye fan, and yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it at Sony. I thought that little trailer they put out was really fun. I thought it had a lot of cartooniness and captured a lot of the essence, so I thought that was great.
Yeah, we are excited as well for that to come out soon. Was there, I mean, we have, I don't know, around 20-ish, or not 20, 10-ish minutes left. Is there anything that you wanted to go over that we didn't, like, hit on or talk about yet? We can come up with a few more questions from people in the audience. I just want to make sure that if you had any like inspiration or advice or anything you want to give to these like budding animators who want to be an animator in the field, to make sure that you have an opportunity to say so.
Yeah, for sure. Animation's a very, very challenging industry to get into. It's very, very, very small. The opportunities are very, very limited, and it's really just a matter of persistence, and if it's something you want to do and it's something you're passionate about, that's the most important part, because that's going to take you a lot farther than just talent. We work so closely with the other artists and other people that we work with at the studio, and we work in such tight, close quarters for such long periods of time that we want to work with people who are cool, and we want to work with people who like what they do. I don't care if you're the best storyboard artist in the world. If you're a dick and if I don't like being around you, I don't want you on my production. That's it. I just don't. And you see that a lot in the industry. Just kind of people who, if they rub you the wrong way or you just don't feel like their attitude is the best, it really can affect a production. So just make sure it's something you really want to do, and always have fun with it, because I mean that's the most important part. I mean, we get really stressed out, and we argue a lot, and we fight a lot about what we think is best for the production, and this doesn't make sense and how that's stupid and how this decision was wrong. But at the end of the day, we make cartoons and we get to have fun. And compared to a lot of other people in the world, we have it pretty easy. So just have fun with it, and just if it's something you want to do, just stay with it, because it will happen. I mean, I really wasn't that good at drawing when I was younger, and even still today, I really don't think I'm that good. But it was just something I really liked to do, and I just did it all the time. And I just did it. There were tons of people that told me, you're not good enough at drawing, you're not good at this. And honestly, I didn't even hear it because I was just too busy drawing. I was like, oh, you don't think I'm good? That's fine. I'm still going to do it. I don't care. I like doing it.
Blinders on. Well, reversely, was there ever a point where you're just like, maybe I can't do it, or maybe I don't, have what it takes, and you wanted to give up?
Yeah, it was that first production. It was Madagascar 3, where it was just because it was just so challenging. It pushed me really, really hard. I had to do things that I had to, I was needed to be capable of drawing things that I wasn't capable of drawing. So it was really, really challenging. And again, like I said, it was really the other story guys that really helped get me through that experience. And it's just one of those things. You just get thrown in the deep end, and if it's something you like, you'll swim. And if it's something you don't like, drowning sounds a little bit harsh, but maybe you realize, okay, maybe this wasn't what I thought I signed up for, or maybe this isn't what I want to do. But if you like it, you'll find your way through it for sure.
Aw. Speaking of drowning or surviving, we do have another question from Nick that says, have you ever read the Animator Survival Kit? And if you have, what are your thoughts on it?
No, I never read that book. I was always much more interested in story, actually. Not necessarily. I mean, animation as a whole, but not necessarily in being an animator. I don't have the patience for being an animator. Honestly, I don't know how they do it. I kind of like big picture ideas and being an idea guy more than focusing on perfecting smaller chunks, which they do very, very well. I mean, these animators are amazing today. But as a kid, when I was growing up, there were lots of books and stuff. But honestly, I learned the most just doing it. Doing flash animations and then learning that way. I think animations like any skill. It's kind of like riding a bike. It's like you could sit there and read a book about how to ride a bike, and you could watch a movie about how to ride a bike, and you could do all the math and figure everything out. But you're not going to know a damn thing until you get on that bike, and until you fall off a few times, and then you figure it out. So, I think with animation, it's no different. You just got to do it, and I think that's the mistake a lot of people make. I remember in college, all these people were like reading and studying, and like, yeah, that's important. But at the end of the day, at a certain point, you just have to put pencil to paper, or stylus to computer screen, I guess, because you're just not going to learn anything unless you do it. So I think that's the most important thing.
Awesome.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Like, I think people just worry too much about this stuff. Like, art's disposable. Honestly, it really is. At the end of the day, it's what we say that's the most important thing. But the artwork itself it's just a piece of paper. It's just a file. It really doesn't mean anything. It should be, when you see something that somebody put their heart into, you know it. You just know it. There's a difference. When you hear a song that you're like, that person gets it. You just get it. And I think that's what needs to be the most important thing, is that if it's something you care about, put it down, and the next time you do it, it's going to be even better. And then the next time after that, it's going to be even better and even better and even better. And I think that's the most important thing to be conscious of. Is just, you're going to do a lot of bad drawings. You're going to do a lot of bad comics. You're going to do some that aren't as good. You're going to do some that are better. But as long as you learn and as long as you take away from each one, you're just going to get exponentially better over time. And it's just a matter of putting that time in.
Aw. Well, on that note, great way to end it. Where can we find more about you, more about your comic or your YouTube channel? This is a perfect opportunity to plug anything you've been working on.
Well, actually, I just posted some storyboards I did for Penguin's movie, so people can see that if they want. If they search Josh Hat Lieberman, they should find most of the stuff associated with me. I have an old blog that has a whole bunch of drawings and storyboard tip sheets, actually, and stuff. So if people search my name, they can find that. If you search Adventures in Gay, be careful what you search for, but if you search Adventures in Gay, you should be able to find the comic, the Facebook page, the Tumblr page, the YouTube page, and yeah, I think I tend to post most of the stuff I do now on the Adventures in Gay Stuff pages. So if you follow any of those, you should see. I'm going to post a new short soon, maybe this week. I don't know. But I'm sure I'll do like a email blast or something when that comes out, so people can check it out. But yeah, I have some storyboards up. I might post some more, so if people are interested in seeing that, they can go. It's a Vimeo page, so if you search Josh Hat Lieberman portfolio or Josh Hat Lieberman Vimeo, you should be able to find it. And I may be posting some more story stuff too. So there's probably some people here who'd be interested in seeing that if they haven't. And
now, as someone who like works on YouTube, is there a reason why your portfolio is on Vimeo rather than YouTube?
Yeah, well, I don't own that content, the story stuff that I've done for studios. So I didn't want it to be on YouTube where it could potentially be monetized. So I put it on Vimeo just so it was just as
an artistic piece.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'll accept that answer. I'll accept that. Cool. So what cool projects are you working on? Just more Adventures in Gay blogs and comics, or are you having like new projects that you're excited about that you're willing to share?
Yeah, I've got lots of ideas. I think everybody's got lots of ideas and lots of projects that they think they're going to work on.
Finding the time, right?
I know, and now I took time off, so I don't have any excuses, except for sleep.
And hopefully eating.
I don't even eat that much. I'm pretty much nocturnal now, honestly. It's so crazy. When you work for yourself, you just kind of like, you stay up a little bit later each day, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm like living when everyone else is sleeping. It's very weird. I forgot the question. What did you ask me? Oh, projects.
Yeah, projects you're working on that you're excited to tell us.
I do have another comic I'm working on that's kind of similar to Adventures in Gay, kind of different. But that's the next one I'm kind of excited about, and I'm working on it right now, and hoping to make it this kind of series of kind of thoughts and essays in kind of a comic form. So it's a little bit different, and but I'm having fun with it. So I'm thinking that'll be the next kind of big one. Hopefully if it takes off, I'll have more incentive and more motivation to keep that one going. So that's going to be the next thing. And I just did this little animated short that's a quick little like 35-second thing with these couple little characters, and that was fun because it's just completely different from like the comic stuff, and even just that world, the whole Adventures in Gay world, it's just completely different. It's just two little cartoon characters goofing off.
Where can we find that?
It hasn't been posted yet, but if you follow Adventures in Gay, you'll see it for sure.
Okay. Awesome. So everyone needs to go follow Adventures in Gay on YouTube and check out his comic. Look, he's got awesome swag. Can other people buy that?
It's for sale. Now available in the Adventures in Gay spreadshirt store. Collect them all.
There you go. There you go, guys. So again, for everyone, like if you joined us late, this will be available on our internal Channel Frederator Network YouTube page. And I'm going to, of course, give the link to Hat here, who then can post it wherever he would like. If you have any other questions specifically for Hat, you can email me directly, and I will get back to you and hopefully have him answer me, and I'll like share
Can I thank everybody?
What?
Can I thank everyone for joining and watching?
Well, you can right now.
Oh, thanks everyone for joining and watching. I don't know how many people saw this, and hopefully I didn't ramble into oblivion. But yeah,
that's the whole point of it. It's just to ramble to interview you.
I hope you can take something away from this. And
I know, I learned a lot.
Oh, good. And yeah, just remember to have fun. Honestly, whatever you do, make sure it's fun. That's the most important thing.
Awesome. On that note, I hope you have a great day. It might be early for you, considering you're a nocturnal night owl now.
I'm not gonna lie, it was difficult to get up for this.
Really? Even though it started at 2 o'clock?
Yeah, I got up at 1, so I'm still like morning hat right now. I'm not.
Good morning, Hat. How are you? I'm glad you were able to join us this early in the morning.
No, I'm tired, and the weather doesn't help either. It always makes me sleepy when it's like cold and rainy and snowy outside.
Oh my gosh, it's the worst in New York right now.
Yeah, it's
so yeah, so I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your week and rest of the weekend. We'll have another live stream. We have one every month at the Channel Frederator Network, so definitely come and check them out. And if you'd like to join Channel Frederator, for those of you just tuning in. If you are an animator interested in animation and want to know more about our network, you can check out our website at just channelfrederatornetwork.com.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye, everybody.